Welcome to the Onstage Podcast, where we deep dive into the power of music and entertainment. Welcome, everyone, to another podcast. I always say that, but it's sort of like the beginning of July, and it's 28 to 29 degrees outside. Very, very hot. I went out for a walk, and I couldn't wait to get home in a nice place with air conditioning. But yeah, 28, 29 degrees. That's like over 90. And so here I am enjoying my week off of vacation. And I use this week to do so many podcasts and interviews, and it keeps me on my toes just as much as you said, Dusty, about your wife keeping you on your toes.
Yes.
So that's amazing. So we have DustyMarcus, and he moved to Canada as a young child in 1981, and he began writing short stories in public school. Learned to play the acoustic guitar with 3 chords, HEC, from his grandfather. That's an interesting story. I want to hear about that. Yeah. So your musical journey progressed from writing poetry in early high school to composing music. Your first band was started playing guitar with a high school friend, leading to the formation of the band Survivorz, with a Z, as us Canadians say it.
Yes.
And band evolution played in Decay and Retribution for about 8 years, performing shows in London and southwestern Ontario, and I'm from Toronto, as you know. And also that you transitioned from rock and roll to folk rock to folk and blues. What? Can't you make up your mind? You played bass guitar in the blues section of shows, and then you performed with your sons Josh on keyboards and occasionally Brandon on drums. We're going to talk about that. And your recent works is that released 3 singles from an album a long time ago in 2021. And you joined Big Records in partnership with Sony Orchard Records. You toured with Rise Up TV. Now we had Tim. We had
Tim Steinrock.
Yeah, we had Tim Steinrock on the podcast a couple weeks ago, and your name was on there. I said, DustyMarcus, I'll be interviewing him. And also, you released Take It Down with Big Records, preparing for new releases. So that was good. And your collaborations with Tim Steinrock from the Mighty Run one on a new song closely associated with Jan Cooper from Cooper Studios.
Yes.
And that song was?
Dangerous.
Right.
Woo!
Woohoo! All right. So thank you so much, Dusty, for being on our podcast tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity to interview you. Can you give us what inspired you to start writing music after beginning with short stories and poetry? Like, what's that all about? That's quite a difference.
I've always just had a knack for writing and using my imagination, and writing all kinds of short stories, and got really into poetry from that. Usually that it involves a girl that you know, and you're in high school, and so started writing poetry. And then that I've always wanted to be a musician, even going back as a young person and listening to the music that was happening in the sort of the mid 80s. And so I got into a lot of that music. The 80s was amazing. But I also fell in love with the Beatles. And then after, like Paul McCartney as an individual artist. And I thought, well, that looks like a great job to have, and so I sort of got into that, and then life catches up and you get swept away, and you've got to get a job and live that part of it. And so you get older, and in 2019 I had gotten very ill, and I ended up in the hospital. It wasn't good. The doctor had said that I had to make plans and all this. So I looked at him and I said, "That's my life. That's it."
Oh, wow.
What a ripoff. Because, I thought, I haven't done half the things I wanted to do. I had plans for this life,
Yeah.
So after that, I really focused on music because I would rather look back and say, yeah, I did that, than look back and say, well, I wish I'd have done that. Right. So that's my motto. And I keep on keeping on. And
Yeah, keep on keeping on.
absolutely enjoy. I mean, don't waste your life and then look back and wish that you'd have lived differently. Do it now. I mean, you're not going to have another chance.
You're very right, Dusty. One person
Yeah.
told me that you don't know if you're going to be here tomorrow. Like, just live for now, live one day at a time. But don't worry about what you're going to do, right? But plan, but at the same time, live like the present, because maybe you're not going to be able to be. You don't know. You just gotta to learn that. Did you have a good relationship with your parents?
Yes, well, it was an interesting situation because my parents had split up. They divorced. So we moved here with my mom and my stepdad. And so the relationship with my stepdad was always a little bit rocky, you know. Um, so, but I did go without seeing my father for about 30 years.
Wow.
And yeah, so when I went over to South Africa in 2010 um, to meet him again, and it was a surprise. They didn't tell him I was coming, and I got to meet my sister. And I have a sister and brother over there as well.
Hmm.
And it was on that trip that I met Shane Derrick, who does the lead guitar for Room 503. And he's from the UK, and I met him, and we spent an entire night at the airport in Johannesburg. It was New Year's, so
Wow.
we landed at it would have been about 11 o'clock at night their time, and everything was closed. The airport was literally dark. There was no one
Hmm.
around except there was this little coffee shop that was open. It was the only place. So we sat in this coffee shop and we chatted all night long, and sort of maintained a friendship over the years. And then, it's you're a musician, yeah, you're a musician, and we kind of now we've been collaborating back and forth. And he introduced me to Tim Pittman, who's a producer there, and yeah, they've worked with me on Room 503, and they did a fantastic job. So it's funny how life goes, eh?
It
The
is.
people you meet, and if I hadn't have gone, or if I'd have gone the next day, or I never would have met them. And who
Yeah,
knows what.
I never saw myself working for the government back in early 2001. I went to college to take like a software development course. I got my programmer's um, diploma. I went to photography. I was going to become a photographer, and I was a wedding photographer for a while. But I had no idea that after my father passed, that I was going to end up working for the government. And I've been there for 21, 22 years. And also, I never thought I'd be a podcast host either. And I love it so much. So you just never know, right?
No. Well, I mean, a podcast host is something that, I mean, if you'd have told me 30 years ago that you were going to be a podcast, I would, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And you're buying drinking water? Really? Right.
Yeah. And I drink
Right.
it in front of people.
Yeah. We used to just drink it out of the hose.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, I find it interesting. You got into computer programming.
Hmm.
I wanted to get into computer programming when I was in school, and my mom said, "You don't want to get into programming. There's no money in that. You want to
No,
get into hardware." So I got into hardware, and I did. Yeah, there's no money in hardware.
no.
That
Some
industry
programming.
dried up, and so I blame my mom, really.
Well, this iPhone app, this smartphone app, you can make a lot of money doing that, and
Yeah.
you can learn how to program on YouTube. They have YouTube programs, and so you just never know. Like, if you want to be a podcast host, and you just go to YouTube and learn teach yourself. Like even there's a gentleman by the name of Charles Berthold, and he plays the bass guitar, but he can teach you. He has like online lessons. So basically,
I've seen some of the stuff on. It's crazy, eh?
yeah. And Davy 502, he's a really good player too. And this 11-year-old girl named Ellen Abergidasian, and she plays the bass, but she's like 11 years old. And when she was 9 years old, she was playing it like she was Geddy Lee or something. But
Isn't
I'd be
that
interested.
crazy?
Yeah, that's really crazy. I'd be interested in asking you about what kind of poetry did you write?
It was interesting. It's a lot about how, like, my feelings for different things. It didn't I don't get into religion or politics, but it was about love, and um, but it had a deeper aspect to it as well. I know that they had said that I should, get into publishing those when
Mhm.
when I was younger, and I never did. I did start a book that I'm still writing 30 years later, but I'm hoping to finish it.
What is it? A book of poems or your memoirs or what?
No, it's actually it's interesting because it's a book about he's a teenager, and what happens is the world sort of falls into um, chaos. There's a big war has happened, and it's interesting because I was talking in there about how the you had to wear extra, like, sunscreen and that, because the atmosphere and the had become so bad. And I'd started writing that in about 89, and when you take a look and you see what has actually happened, it's kind of interesting, isn't it, that the world has gone that way, and now the sun, I mean, the sun is dangerous now. You have to wear, all these creams and stuff on, where before, if you got a sunburn, it was like, walk it off. You'll be fine.
I remember in
Calamine
the
lotion or
70s,
whatever.
I was thinking my favorite program was Space 1999. I thought by 1999 we're going to be in starships, and have we? It's past. It's like 24 years later, and we still haven't got flying
I
cars yet.
I was just gonna say that I don't have a flying car. You know,
Yeah,
I'm still waiting for that. I don't. To be honest, if you really think about it, that would be very frightening. You're now putting. I mean, people have a hard enough time driving cars on the ground. Can you
yeah,
imagine collisions?
I know. And you'd have to go to air traffic control and say, okay, are there any instead of saying, are there any other Boeing 747s or any WestJets? You'd have to say, any flying cars available so you guys don't go jumping. Yeah, be kind
Yeah,
of funny.
yeah, yeah. And
So that
I'm
I'm
sure
sorry.
they
Go
would
ahead.
love it. The air
Yeah.
traffic controllers would just love the extra work.
So are you planning to get this book published at one point? Because I have a good title for it.
Um, yeah, I named it Jeffrey, which is the lead sort of person in the book. So
Right.
yeah, I would like to do that. It's just, you get busy with music, and I never sit down and actually go back, and well, once in a while I go back and visit Jeffrey and add a little bit to it, and you know.
I would call it Dusty in the Wind. Get
Hey,
it?
there you go. There you go. That's a great song, Dust in the
Yeah.
Wind. Yeah.
So what's this about? How did your grandfather's guitar lessons influence your musical style? I'm more interested in thinking of that too. What's that about?
Yeah, he learned to play by ear, and he always used to, at family get-togethers, he'd always pull out the guitar and he would sing, and everyone was, just having fun. And so I had received a guitar for my birthday. I think, in grade 7. I'm thinking. And he sat down and he taught me just those chords, and he taught me a little song, with using those chords. So I got to learn those chords, and then sort of stretched out after that, and oh, there's more chords that I can learn. And yeah, he it's interesting because they come from South Africa as well, and had lived through the apartheid era. And for everything that they lost to the government when that came out, they were always happy, you know. And they have been married for 70 years.
70 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Think about that. That's, you don't find that anymore, do you?
I knew a couple who were married for 84 years. He was 105, she was 103. And another couple who were married for 80 years. It's depending what time, like you're 17 or 18 years old, you get married. Sure, possibility that you could be married for 70, 80 years.
That's true. Yeah, that doesn't happen so much anymore these
No.
days. People tend to stay away from that and getting married, and yeah.
Yeah.
People are a little afraid of it, I think.
So your grandfather, was this not a bass guitar? It was just a regular guitar? Like,
It was just a regular acoustic guitar. Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, I don't have it, but I have one that's similar to it. That it's old. The strings are all rusted on it, but it looks like my first guitar, so I keep it.
Okay, I'm going to ask you this. I ask all artists all the time. So what was the very first song that you played on the guitar? Was it
Yeah.
or Thunderstruck?
Actually, it was the first one that I really attempted was Crazy Train.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I knew a guy. I was in public school, and he was just this little kid, but he picked up and he could play that riff from Crazy Train like there was no tomorrow. I remember he brought it in sort of to school to show and tell, and the my teacher at the time, his jaw just literally hit the ground. He couldn't believe that this kid was playing like that. Mm-hmm. I thought, well, he's good. I don't know whatever happened to him.
It's amazing. So what happened to the band or Survivorz, and why did it suddenly end? And then you joined a band, Decay and the Retribution, that lasted 8 years. What happened to the transition?
Just trying to just sort of remember. The Survivorz, I think we just kind of outgrew it. We were doing we did some shows. We were in St. Thomas and Elmer, and we just I don't know. It just kind of ended. I had gone away, and when I came back, everything had sort of fallen apart. And I had said, make sure that while I'm gone, because I was gone for a month, make sure that everyone's still practicing and getting together. And I got back, and that wasn't quite the case. So then everyone was sort of mad at everyone, and you know how it goes. And Decay and the Retribution was. I had run into a friend of mine from high school who we used to cut class and play guitar together back in the day. And so I ran into him, and he's a musician as well. And we got together that night to play. And then he knew somebody who played on drums. And so he came out, and before we knew it, we had the room full of people, and we were playing, and things just kind of went from there. And we were playing a couple of times every week. I think definitely a couple of times a week. We were quite busy, but we kind of gone into the blues, and then some people didn't like playing the blues and didn't want to. So it created a riff, and so the band changed at that point to where I was sort of doing the folk section. of the show, and then we would go into the blues section, and yeah, we had a harmonica player, and it was pretty good actually. Yeah, there's some stuff out there. I could send it to you. I'll have to go looking for it, but I think there's a Facebook page dedicated to those years.
So after you left Decay and the Retribution after 8 years, did the band break up, or did they just add someone else to replace you?
No, they broke up.
Oh,
They broke
really?
up. Yeah, and yeah, I had wanted to get back together, with them and try and get the band back together, and I did try, but if when people don't get along, when I'm practicing or when I'm in the studio here, you want everyone to be positive, upbeat.
Yeah.
I mean, we're here to have a good time, and when people are arguing, and it's not for me. I don't like that negativity, so I tend to kind of steer away from it. And if you stick around with positive people, you'll always have a positive outlook. So
I agree with you. Did any of those members of the band, are they still playing music today, or are they doing something totally different?
I think they're doing something totally different.
Oh, really?
To be honest,
Oh.
I know the one person. He is. I talked to him the other day, and he does little recordings now. Just him and the guitar. And he wants to get together and and play with me, and I'm like, I've already got someone who plays drums, so I'm good. I'm doing okay, and I like being a solo artist. It's very different than playing with a group of people who and who are around you. So, but they both have their benefits, though, because it is nice being in a crowd of people. If everything's working and everything's gelling, and man, it's a good time. It's just when people start arguing and you say, "Yeah, don't tell me how to tune a guitar." I've been,
like the Gallagher brothers. They were arguing just in the band, and they broke up because of that. I mean, what? I would never be in the band with my brother. I would just say, you know what? Watch us play. I don't want to actually have you in the band. Yeah. Liam and Noel, just woof woof, just fight.
Yeah, and you're just sitting back like, what happened?
I know.
We're not we're not trying to kill each other.
I know. But so, what's your motivation for transitioning from rock and folk and blues? So, what's the motivation for that? Is it easy transition?
Yeah, I don't really sit down and say I'm going to write a blues song or I'm going to write a rock song. I write a song, and it just ends up whatever it ends up as. And I just, it's interesting because there's a lot of country songs that are also rock songs and back and forth, right? So they kind of transition back and forth quite a bit. Folk is sort of, it was really not something you never wanted to tell a producer that you did folk music, because they were like, okay, we'll see you later. But it is making a comeback, and I'm seeing a lot of people listening to folk music again, which is really cool. But I like the rock and the harder rock side of it. It's fun to do. Is it ever fun to do? And Tim Steinrock, he's just that guy. He bleeds positivity, and
he's a great guy.
He is, and his beard is 21 years old. His beard can legally drink in the United States.
I asked him about, because Dusty Hill and ZZ Top, and if he replaced ZZ Top, he said he did play for Billy Gibbons, I believe, in ZZ Top.
Yeah, he's got a lot of connections musically. I know that I'm just trying to remember who it's one of the guys from Kiss.
Paul Stanley, I think you mentioned.
Paul Stanley, that's right, yeah. And he was really in good with them at one point. So the torch of rock and roll, right? So
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my friend Wayne Anderson and his friend Mike Green. They are in this band called Element 117, and Wayne had his Kiss story where he had brought a little figurine of Gene Simmons to a Kiss concert, and he handed it to Paul Stanley, and Paul Stanley took it and he threw it in the audience, and he was so mad about that. Said, you're supposed to give that to Gene Simmons. You don't take it and throw it. So he had his own story. That's as close as got to the Kiss, though.
Okay.
But yeah. But so I'd like to find out about your family collaboration. You performed with your sons, Josh and occasionally Brandon. So Brandon plays the drums and Josh plays the keyboards. But you did call yourself a solo artist. So I take it you don't have a band with them. You just play with them and perform.
Yeah.
With them? Okay.
They're not. They're very apprehensive about performing live.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but in the studio they're great, right? So the thing with Brandon too is for doing live, we couldn't because he was under 18. We couldn't do anything where they served alcohol or anything like that.
Oh,
so that kind of limited us, but Josh, he's actually sort of going from keyboards. He's actually going into guitar now. He's playing a lot of guitar. But yeah, I like having him here in the studio. We always have a good time. And as studio musicians, I mean, they're great. And if that's what I can get, then as long as we're making music.
Were Brandon and your son Josh, were they instrumental in your single a long time ago?
Josh was, but Brandon wasn't. He didn't perform on that one. But Josh did, absolutely.
So tell me about a long time ago. I hear that a lot of musicians, their songs are written because of experiences. For instance, Dan Reynolds from Imagine Dragons, there's a song called Wrecked. He wrote it in remembrance of his sister-in-law who died of cancer. So he wrote it about what he was feeling. So is there a experience in your life that long time ago goes with?
Yeah, there is. And it goes back to a relationship that didn't work out very well. And it's sort of me looking back on it. And, I mean, we were young, and it's a different different time. And yeah, so I'm saying a long time ago, and in the end, I'm the fool, right? And if you listen to the song through, and I was the fool in that. So it's a great song. My friend Garnet produced it, and we spent a lot of time in the studio. He's a stickler. Boy, oh boy, is he a stickler. I only saw him smile once, and that was when it was finished, and it was perfect, right? And then he finally looked at me and he said, "That's good," right? But through the entire time that we were recording it, barely a smile. Well, what do you think? Yeah, come back tomorrow. Kind of. But then finally, it was good enough, and I almost broke down, at that moment, because you put so much work into it. And originally, when I first wrote it, it was just me on an acoustic guitar, and that's it. Things just took off from there. That's what started this whole thing that's going on right now as a solo artist. A long time ago was the one that I'd sent to Bentley Records, and they'd gotten in touch with me and said, we'd like to work with you. So yeah, fun. So yeah, it does. It is a reflection of actual life events without mentioning any names. I'm sure that they know who I'm talking about, but
yeah. What's your song creation process? You start with the lyrics and the music, the melody. How does it work for you?
What I'll do is I'll have the lyrics, or I'll have an idea of what I kind of want to do this, and then you just play, some chords and figure out your chord progression. Then you're singing with the words, you're writing stuff down, and then I bring in a drum track to keep time. I'm not big on click tracks. I have a really hard time, especially if I'm playing the guitar, even hearing the click track. I got to turn it all the way up. But drums, I can hear drums, so that keeps the time, right? And so you do your guitar, your vocals, your drums, and then after that you can bring in the bass and sort of start branching out. That's what works for me.
Okay, that's fair. I was talking to a musician, and they can actually write a song around a title. So they can take a title like "The Sun Is Out" or "I Stubbed My Toe" and create a whole song around it.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see you doing that. I Stubbed My Toe would probably be a really heavy song.
Yeah.
When we did Dangerous, we had 2 hours. I don't know if Tim mentioned that. We'd gone into the studio and Tim said, okay, we have 2 hours to write and record this song. And we got into it, and just as we finished, we both look up at the clock and it was exactly 2 hours. It still needed to be polished, but we had the entire song and the music down. And I thought, now that's pretty good. 2 hours. I've never done one that quickly and recorded it as well. That's crazy.
So you prefer to write music with collaborators like Tim Steinruck, or would you prefer to write music on your own? Because would that be more difficult? Because there's no input.
It's more difficult on your own because with someone else, you're bouncing ideas back and forth. There's a new song that will be coming out called Into the Blue that Sarah Smith and I had done. And we wrote it on Pender Island in Vancouver. And we brought our guitars, of course. We had gone down to the beach, so why not bring a guitar? And we were the only ones, and we were on sat on, it was a piece of driftwood, this big log. And we wrote down the lyrics right there. She'd write a line, I'd write a line, and we kind of went through it like that. And I like collaborating, but at the same time, I also like having sort of my own little space where, but collaborating with another artist is a very, very, very cool experience because, we're both songwriters. We're bringing our experiences from both our lives, and we're now putting it into this project. And it's a very magical experience when you're writing with somebody else. When you're writing alone, it can get a little lonely sometimes, So it's
Well, you were talking about long time ago song being like a love song or whatever, long gone relationship. What's your feeling about love songs where, okay, so 20 years ago you were dating a girl named Linda and you wrote a song for her, but now you're not dating Linda and even know where Linda is. Now you're married with somebody totally different and had children with. How does that song affect you now? And would you put your wife's name in there, not Linda's? Would it have to affect or no?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that for a song that you've done in the past, you just sort of revisiting it when you perform it. I wouldn't put someone else's name in. I would write another song because this is a new beginning. This is a new thing where, what I wrote 10 years ago, that was 10 years ago. So that's a version of me from then. So, and I would have no problem singing the song and mentioning her from 10 years ago doing this, in the song. because, like I said, if anyone ever wanted to know about me personally, listen to my music, because it's all in there. It's all in there somewhere. I tell the kids that too, that, just listen. And it leaves a legacy, right? As well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's music from all different parts of my life are in there. It's almost like an encyclopedia of information, going back over my whole life.
Do you think Elton John, who wrote Funeral for a Friend, Candle in the Wind, from Norma Jean Baker, who AKA Marilyn Monroe, to suddenly create the song again in 1998 after Princess Diana's death, make the song for Diana? Do you think that was wrong for him to do that?
No. It was incredibly touching what he did. That was a very, very special song for him to begin with. So for him to write England's Rose, and to use Diana was that was something very, very special for him that he gave to Diana, right? And so, no, I don't think it was wrong for him to do that at all. No, I don't think so. Interestingly enough, his in-laws live in the St. Thomas area. Did you know that? I found that out the other day.
St. Thomas area?
Yeah. It's about half an hour from here, from London. It's half an hour south.
Yes, because his husband, I forget his name, but he was from Brampton, I think.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name. I used to know his name, boom, but now I don't. It's like my mind.
Yeah, I can't think. I can't think of it right now. I used to know it too.
Furness.
Yes.
His last name is Furness.
Furness,
but I can't remember his first name.
Yeah.
David Furness. I'm not sure.
I'd have to Google it.
So,
but yeah, you can actually run into him. Hey, Elton.
No, was that him? No, that wasn't him at Square One, was it? No, it wasn't. So what was the reason for you join Big Records partnership with Sony Orchard Records? What do you think that was going to get you?
Well, initially I wanted a manager, someone who can kind of direct me, and sort of guide me through, which led me to talking with Mark Rosner, who's the head of Big Records. And the biggest benefit that I would say that I got from that is the contacts, the meeting. I've met so many other musicians that I never would have met had it not been for Big Records. Rise Up TV, I would never have even known about it.
That's cool.
And here I was touring with these artists, and so yeah, there's a huge benefit to partnering up like that with somebody, or with Big Records. And then the distribution as well through Sony Orchard, they've got a very wide reach. So that the music's going to be everywhere that they can put it. And it's definitely been quite a ride with them, because I've met so many different people. I've been on so many different interviews. I love doing interviews. It's great. I love it.
I love it too. Yeah.
And I love talking to people, and so yeah, without their sort of guidance, I would never have been able to achieve what I've been able to achieve so far. So yeah, hats off to Big Records. Room 503 is actually done through Bentley Records, and they had contacted me and had asked if I would, because I originally was with them, if I would come back and work with them again. So I thought, well, sure, well, let's do it. I'm a lot wiser now when it comes to the music industry and how it works. And, it has changed. The music industry has changed from the 1980s to now.
Oh yeah.
You know, for one, artists aren't making that kind of money. You know, I was reading about an artist who he's had over 1 million plays on one of the platforms, and he received $3,000 for 1 million sales. And I thought, well, that's insane. Can you imagine? You know, when you do the math, he's not making very much at all. And that's the one sort of thing that I was a big fan of Steve Jobs at Apple. I loved the guy. I thought he was amazing, a visionary. But when he got into music and he made it sort of, 99 cents for a play or to buy a song, I think that I think all the record companies were very happy, but I think that the musicians really lost, in my opinion. They really lost in that deal.
That's interesting. So why did Sting sell his entire catalog for $300 million to I think it was BMI, I believe?
That's
Why?
happening a lot, isn't it? I don't know. There's a lot.
Yeah, and Kiss just sold their entire catalog for $1 billion. I don't get it. Why? They need the money?
Why?
They don't need the money.
They don't need the money. So why, you know what I mean? Why do that? Yeah, I think that there's a lot of musicians that are taking their music off. If you look for Garth Brooks online, good luck. You'll find a lot of tributes songs of Garth Brooks, but there's not very much of his available online. And because they've pulled it off, a lot of them are doing that now and saying, we're not making any money here. We want to take this whole thing down. And that's the one thing I think that the big record companies are going to realize is that, they can't keep playing the game that they're playing where they hold 90% of everything.
Yeah.
The artists, and especially, these big artists are influential, and, they can say things and do things. People are watching. And if someone was to say, well, this platform is no good, it will have an effect. And that's where they are looking at upping the rates now. I know that your plays online actually count now towards like Billboard and stuff like that.
Oh, really?
So yeah, it does. I read that it was a couple of weeks ago. I saw that. I think it was in the Toronto Star. So yeah.
They're not making very much on Spotify, and it's sad because the CEO of Spotify is like these indie artists, and they're coming up with some very fantastic music albums, whatever, but they're not making anything. Now, here, back in the 80s, and I just calculated it now and let you know, when they like blinded me with Science or whatever 80s group came out with a single, if they sold 1 million singles, they get 5 cents. You know how much that is? $50,000.
Yeah, that wow.
So if you were to have at least 2 cents per stream, these artists would make money. But $50,000, I mean, I don't know how much Britney made from billion streams on Toxic, but it wasn't very much. But she doesn't need the money, and Taylor doesn't need the money because she's like a billionaire. But you just like take all your music off Spotify and prove to the CEO, I forget his name. I'm glad I don't know his name. He's not doing anything. He's getting all the money and yet putting all the hard work. I know one musician, she put out a Facebook post, I'm not going to be in music anymore. I'm dropping everything and moving my music. I'm just putting out more money than I am making it, and blah, blah, blah. And then she just walked away from it.
Oh, wow.
But maybe one day your ship will come in. And a friend of mine's a big artist, and he came up with a Christmas album at Christmas, and some of his songs were like streaming 1 million streams. but I don't even know what 1 million streams pays you. Pays you what, a cent?
Yeah,
That's
it works out to 0.017 cents for one of
oh
those
wow.
platforms. Yeah,
You
that's
can
how
buy
much you
like
make.
one McDonald's fry, probably.
Yeah, like 0.017. I
Yeah.
mean, you musicians, no one can make money make at that rate.
Mhm.
You know, you'd have to have a billion streams. You know what I mean to make any money.
Mhm.
And it's not like people are spending less on music these days. Everyone's paying for Apple Music, Spotify, Deezer. There's so Tribal.
Yeah.
There's so many, and everyone's paying their monthly fees. And they tell you, oh, there's a portion of that goes to the artist. No, no, it doesn't. Show me where. Prove it to me. Let me see it, because you know I've received money, but I haven't received that kind of money.
Mm.
And yeah. I don't know where it's going to go. I just hope that they sort of wise up and start paying people what they're worth, because now some people may think that we don't really work, that we just kind of sit around and play music all day, which is kind of what we do, but it's work. It is work, and that, especially the social media and keeping up with that, it's a full-time job just keeping up with that stuff.
Mhm.
I've been lucky. I have people that help me in that area that are sort of always keeping an eye on things.
Mhm.
But if you're not doing 2 or 3 videos a week on YouTube, you start losing people. People start losing interest.
Mm.
And as it is, people's attention spans are not very long these days. They say that within the first 3 seconds of them seeing something online, they've made up their mind unconsciously or subconsciously whether they're going to continue watching it or not. And most of the time, there's not anything bright and sparkly that shows up. They're clicking on the next video already.
Oh wow,
Right?
that's interesting. That'll help me
Yeah,
because I was posting 2 videos a week, and I kind of cut it down to 1 because now I reached the 200th episode. People will know, okay, 200 episodes. So it's not like I just started. I only started 3 years ago, but I'm at 200 episodes, and I think I can afford to post 1 episode a week.
yeah, that's
So
awesome. That's awesome.
I love it.
You've been busy.
I love doing this. Yeah, and my dream is to get Sting on the podcast.
Yeah. Oh, that would be amazing, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that would be amazing.
And
Yeah.
Nicole Kidman, because she does a lot of musical theater as well, but she's also a great actress too.
Yeah. I met up with Alan Frew a
Oh,
number of years
really?
ago. Yeah, and we
Seriously?
actually
Oh,
had a
wow.
beer. We had a beer together.
Nice, Alan
And
Frew. Yeah.
yeah, another guy that just bleeds positivity. This guy is just incredible. And
Hmm.
he wrote a book called The Action Sandwich, which is very interesting. And he had terrible stage fright
Oh, really?
when Glass Tiger started. They had to run down the street and catch him. He would
Oh,
bolt,
wow.
he would run, and
Really?
they would catch him and then drag him literally on stage to perform.
Wow.
And he'd be
See,
throwing up backstage because he was so scared
really? Still,
of
even after all
performing.
those years?
Yeah,
Wow.
and now he's obviously he does motivational speaking and all this stuff now. He's not shy now, but yeah. So anyone who has stage fright can look. Hey, if he can do it and get over it, I think anyone can probably do it.
Yeah, I think Pete Townsend of The Who said that he had stage fright, but I mean, even if you've been performing for years, you're still stage fright because it's not the same people that come to see you. Some of them, but it's all different people over the years.
It is.
Um, the kids that would let the parents would leave their kids with babysitters to go see Rush or something, and now the adults coming with their kids to watch Rush. So I mean, it's interesting. And for musicians and bands that have been performing for 30, 40 years with like 25, 30 albums, and they make all their money, they can afford to walk away from music. Like another group called X, it's a punk rock group called X. They've been performing 30, 40 years, suddenly called it quits. I mean, you can do that. You can do
Yeah.
that. But if you're just starting like yourself, like I hate to see a year from now saying I'm going to stop music. Like why?
Yeah, no.
Because you never know. Someone's going to knock on the door and say, "Hello, are you DustyMarcus?" Yes. Well,
Yeah.
I'm Paul McCartney, and I'd love to do a collab with you. You know, you don't know.
Yeah, now wouldn't that be something, you know?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that's another musician that if you go to, and I've seen him 3 times. And the age difference, you will find kids all the way up through every age, all the way up to the 60s and 70s.
Mhm.
And, you know, when you have music that spans generations, it's timeless, right?
Mhm.
And so I thought, well, that's success, you know. And when you go see a show, I don't know if you've ever seen Paul McCartney live. I saw him in
No.
Toronto twice, and then I saw him at the
Really?
Palace of Auburn Hills.
Oh wow.
And it is incredible. He never leaves the stage, and he's not young. When the band takes a break, he grabs a stool, he sits down, he says, "Finally, we get to spend some time alone together." Just him and the audience, and he never leaves for the entire 2.5, 3 hours. He's on stage the whole time.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, talking about Paul McCartney. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Talking about Paul McCartney, are you familiar with the new last Beatles song, Now and Then? I saw a documentary how they put that together, and they used AI to remove the vocals of John Lennon and the piano, and they used AI, and I bet you know what the question's going to be. They used AI in a good way to create this fantastic song. Dusty, what are your thoughts about AI and using that Suno and Udio and all those other music producing software apps? How do you feel about making music using AI?
At first, I was very nervous about it. I was, I thought, well, that's great. Anyone can write a song now. You just tell AI to do it. But then, you know, it's a tool that can be used. And it's just another tool in your toolbox that you can use to, you know, if you need help with some lyrics, it can help you with that. And it's not gonna, you know, if you say, well, write me a #1 hit, right? It's not gonna just write one for you. So whatever it puts down and whatever you do using it, it may go nowhere, it may go somewhere, but it's not something to be scared of. It's just another tool in the toolbox. And as long as you think of it like that, and you know, then that's the best way. I've seen, you know, our album cover for Room 503, part of it was created using AI. And yeah, because I'd sort of written this long thing about how I wanted the cover to look, to be. And the guy who does our photography, he just typed it into AI and sort of brought up these different images, right? And then we were able to sort of take one, and he added color to it, and you know, was able to put us into it. But yeah, it's not something to be scared of. It's you'll never be able to get away from it anyway. But I think that also if you do use it for music creation, you have to include that in the your metadata that it was in part created by artificial intelligence. So you're not sort of saying, well, I did it and then you didn't, right? You used AI. You still have to let people know that you did use it. But yeah, I'm not scared of it. What do you think about AI?
Okay, before we give you my opinion, was long time ago was an AI. I'm just joking. Well,
no, it wasn't.
you don't know these days, but like the deep fakes, like the deep fake Tom Cruise and all that stuff. I found out who the actual person was. His name was Miles Byrne or something, and he used it, because Tom Cruise doesn't really do very many. He doesn't go golfing, whatever. So the Tom Cruise deep fake said, "This is Tom Cruise golfing," So it's kind
Yeah.
of so with AI, if a prompt could be, I want a song sung by Tom Cruise regarding golfing, eating French fries, going to McDonald's, and putting on a clown suit. And I want it in the style of rock or jazz, whatever. And it'll come up with Tom Cruise singing and everything you want. And I'm thinking, okay,
Okay. What else do you need?
so what if there's a song I create, and they're saying that Taylor Swift is using most of AI for her music as well.
No, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
I don't know that. All I know is that someone came up to you and said, "Hey, I'm not from Big Records, and I'm not also from Sony or anything. I'm just from another company, and we'd like you to collaborate on a song with David Bowie. Would you do that?"
Well, yeah, except he's not with us right now. So
His AI is.
yeah, that's true. I never even thought about that you could do
Yeah.
that.
I heard an AI of Johnny Cash singing "Barbie Girl" by Aqua.
Are you serious? I've
Yeah.
never. Yeah, that's interesting.
You can do anything you want. If you wanted to, you can get Elton John singing Taylor Swift song. You can get whoever. That's how much AI has progressed. If you wanted to, you could.
So I guess it's a tool that you can use it for good, but it's like any tool. You could also use it for bad. Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. I think that if you were to do it with a musician and there would be legalities that they'd be able to come down and say, well, copyright something or other. You're using the name, Tom Petty or David Bowie.
Well, you'd have to get the permission from Tom Petty's family or the estate. If I can do a Tom Petty song, collaborate and do a cover song, and how much litigation you have to go through, I don't know.
I don't know. I know if you are doing a sort of a cover of a song, say Johnny Cash, you, in order to sell it, you've got to be in touch with their I can't think of which department it is, but it's a department that takes care of copyright. And you just pay a fee, however much that is, and then you could use it, but they get a percentage, right, out of everything that you sell. So
Yeah. So it's like new song by David Bowie and DustyMarcus called whatever, right?
Yeah.
And it becomes a hit, but it's not a David Bowie song. It's a
No, it's not.
We used AI.
Yeah, and I wonder how he would have felt about that. That's interesting. I know that when it came to the Beatles, they used it to separate John's voice from the piano.
Yeah.
And which is interesting because I was just looking. I used Logic Pro at home, and the one of the new features is you can take an MP3, and it will literally separate the tracks for you.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and put them up on the screen for you to see, and you can manipulate them or do whatever you want with them, including take the vocals out
and put someone else's in there.
But yeah, I did a Cars song, and I did that just to see how it worked. And yeah, it's me singing with the Cars behind me.
Oh wow!
Isn't that it's crazy? It's now it's me singing, but I'm singing to them, right? So obviously I'm not gonna put that out.
I know AI can be used for good, aka now and then, and it can use for bad. Like, come on, I mean, the YouTube videos. Okay, well, I'm going to be checking out this new Suno software that allows me to create my own music. Let's see. So I think I'll take Barbie Girl by Aqua and I'll use Johnny Cash's voice. And then you get, I will brush my hair and dress me everywhere. I just turned it right off. Okay. Like, that's getting a little bit too creepy there.
And that's where I think that the people listening to it, they're either going to like it or they're not. And because no matter what you do, you have to cater to your audience. Mm-hmm. And if they disagree with you doing something, they will let you know, right? And you'll get all kinds of angry people that you may have to explain to. So at the end of the day, you really answer to them. And if you've got a lot of Johnny Cash fans that follow you, you've got to be so careful because maybe they're not going to follow you anymore.
Oh, right? Yeah.
So you've always got to think about that at the end of the day, we're doing it for them to enjoy. And if they disagree, then you can end up in a lot of trouble with them, right?
Yeah. I mean, like, I want to take Adele and do a collaboration. Now it's Adele and I are doing Hello, and I'm doing the goodbye part. And then releasing it, and Adele's, lawyers and litigation and suing me for that. I mean, you can't do that. So I don't know how far AI is going to get, but Suno and Udio and it's going to get to the point where AI is going to be where you can just feed a song and it'll separate everything for you. And it'll tell you, okay, so you don't want Rick Ocasek's vocals in the car song Panorama, maybe, for instance.
Yeah.
Let's put Elton John's voice in there. What are you going to do? You're going to Elton John's going to say, no, sorry, pay up,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think Elton John would say, I don't think so. That this better stop right now. Yeah. And I was a huge Cars fan. Rick Ocasek is just fantastic musician, and Orr as well. But on
bass, yeah, both of them are gone now.
Yeah, they're both gone. Yeah, that shocked me because their very last album, I went out and I bought it, and they did come to Toronto, but I had to work. I wasn't able to go to the show, and boy, do I regret it. I would have really enjoyed seeing the Cars in Toronto. That would have been really cool.
Yeah, Todd Rundgren was actually part of the Cars for a bit. I think I don't know. I know Greg Hawkes was the keyboard player. Ben is gone, Rick is gone, but Todd Rundgren's in around, and I think they have a few more. But I don't know. If I was in a band and we were playing for years and we lost like keyboard players and guitarists to the point where you end up being the original player of the band, it's like the Temptations. The last member of the Temptations died some time ago, but you got a young group who are still calling themselves the Temptations. And the Police, Andy Summers is going out with different people calling themselves the Police.
Oh, really? That's it.
Sting isn't in it.
To do that.
Stuart Copeland isn't part of it. Why would I go see the Police when it's just Andy Summers?
That's
I'd rather
right.
go see Sting in concert.
No, that's right. You can, yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. So, it's very interesting. Music and genres and musicians. Talk about genres. Yeah, I asked another musician this question. Okay, so you're familiar with Led Zeppelin and Stairway to Heaven, right?
Yeah.
Is that a rock tune or a heavy metal tune?
It's a rock tune. I would say it's a rock tune.
Now, on Jimmy Page's 75th birthday, they had a whole choir in a symphony play Stairway to Heaven, and they were all singing Stairway to Heaven. Is it still a rock tune, or is it now a symphonic symphony?
Like, wow. It's still a rock tune. I think it's still a rock tune because it's that's what it was originally. And now, if you were to turn it into like a ballet, then it would be difficult to call that rock. But it's still, its roots are born in rock, right? So, no, that's interesting.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
I've heard pretty good covers of rock and pop tunes done in a jazzy style, and I'm thinking this jazz cover is better than the original.
I've
Um,
I've encountered that too with songs, and you're like, man, this is really good, and you
exactly.
think it is better than the original. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. I
So
was just yeah. Go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. No, you finish.
No, I was just thinking. Phil Collins, a big,
Yeah.
huge Genesis fan in the
Mm,
'80s
yeah.
when he had Invisible Touch,
Yeah.
and he had he had the puppets doing the videos.
Yeah.
Those were great, and I actually ran into him at Schiphol Airport,
Wow.
and this
In
was,
Holland, yeah.
yeah, and I was going one way and he was going the other, and we kind of stopped, and I looked at him and he looked at me, and I felt so bad. He looked so tired, just
Mm.
haggard, just tired. I didn't even approach him. There was this moment where he knew that I knew who he was, and I just kind of nodded at him, and he did that and just
But
kept
when
on
you see him
walking.
now, he's like in a wheelchair and everything. Oh,
I
wow.
know
Terrible.
it's interesting how people age. Some people age badly. Um, I had this discussion. Actually, I was talking to my mom, and Paul McCartney. When you look, he's 82
Two
or
or
something like that. But he is in an incredible shape. But he's also he's been a vegan
mm.
since the 80s.
Hmm.
He hasn't touched meat, and he stayed away from the hard drugs. I mean, marijuana.
Hmm.
He definitely, he's definitely not staying away from that, but which is fine. Um, but when you look at some other people who maybe didn't take as good care of themselves, maybe who partied it up, and I mean, there's a lot of things that go on, especially when you're touring. There's a lot of parties, a lot of things that happen.
I agree.
But if you watch what you eat, like he has, and I'm not one to talk. I'm the last one to tell you to watch what you eat. But he has really been health conscious for a long, long time, and I think that the results are right there when he's up on stage and he's moving around, and you don't know, when you're seeing him on stage, you don't know whether it's 2020 or whether it's 1978.
I know. And same with Mick Jagger. He's like 81 or something, or 80 years old, and he's still dancing on the,
I
doing his thing.
know, it's crazy. He's still
Crazy. I
going,
know.
and like I said, Keith Richards, I mean, he's been gone for a long time, but they just keep propping him up, and they say that every cigarette you smoke takes 1 minute off your life and gives it to Keith Richards.
I know. And I remember, what was his name? I can't remember. Anyways, he's the actor that played Fish and Barney Miller, but
Yep.
he was still alive. He was still around, and there'd be newspapers, and they have a whole website dedicated to him saying he's Abe Vigoda. He say Abe Vigoda is still alive. So with Keith Richards, we're thinking because of all the hard drugs and everything, and since Keith Richards has passed away, it's like we have some news. Keith Richards is still alive. So, and it's true. I mean, like these rock stars, they just like Ron Wood, Keith Richards, Charlie Watts passed away though, but the Rolling
He
Stones is
did,
still
yeah.
stoning. They're still rolling and stoning.
Absolutely, they are, and they still know how to put on a good show.
They do.
It's crazy.
So
Interesting about the Rolling Stones, and I
mhm.
was reading, this was a few months ago, but their first hit was a Beatles song. Their first number one hit was if you look it up, it was a Beatles song,
Yeah,
and
I think you're right.
and it was given to them by Paul McCartney. So, everyone that said, well, you're either a Stones fan or and they're kind of fighting, they weren't at all.
Oh, wow,
In
that's
fact,
nice.
they were helping each other, to
That's
achieve.
sweet.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing. Wow. I love talking about it, this type of stuff. How did it feel for you to be finalist in 4 categories for an ISSA award? What was going through your mind? What was your mindset at that time?
I was hoping to be nominated for 1, and then I saw that for 4. I'm still shocked. It's like, wow, people are definitely listening to the music, and yeah, that's now. Let's see. I'm hoping that I win one. That would be good, right? But to be nominated is a huge honor, and
Yeah.
it's very humbling actually, because when you get that that validation that your music is good, right? And because we're our own worst critics, right? We're forever thinking that, am I good enough? But when you get that, it's that that people like you,
Yeah, your
and
songs and Take It Down and Long Time Ago. It's really amazing.
well, thank you, thank you. It means a lot when people say that, because we do. I mean, you get a lot of people that that you're around that will say, you sound great,
Hmm.
but some of them, maybe they're being a little bit they're making it sound better than what this guy's music is not really that good. Oh, your music's good, right? But for people to actually go, I mean, and I went through the steps on how you vote on the ISA thing, and
Hmm.
it's not like easy. You got to click around, and then you got to click through all these names, so you've got to be pretty dedicated to right. So it's very humbling, and I'm really taken back, and it tells me that I'm on the right track, and just to keep on doing what I do and to keep on going. And there's I still have better songs that are coming. I don't know what they are, but they're going to be out there for people to hear.
If you could collaborate with one rock star, who would it be?
Oh my goodness, there's so many. To Alan Frew.
Oh, Alan Frew, yeah, from Glass Tiger. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I really, during COVID, he
Hmm.
lives in Toronto, and during COVID, he did every Sunday he was doing a live podcast where you could join in, and he would phone people that were on he'd say, oh, I'm going to call Kevin Wilson, right? And he would
Oh, okay.
phone you and talk, and he did that for a couple of years, for as long as COVID was going on. As long as he was at home with COVID, he was talking to people, and he'd
Hmm.
always sort of end it playing a tune. And I really admired that, because there's not that many musicians that I know that had that kind of dedication to their fans, that they're doing this, not being paid for it. They're doing it every Sunday because they want to talk to people, and a lot of people that he called, they are new Glass Tiger fans, and it's wow, new Glass Tiger
Yeah,
fans, you
yeah.
know.
Okay, everyone. DustyMarcus saying goodbye. Thank you for so much.
Thank you so much.
Just wait there 1 second. Bye.
Bye.